Thank you very much. The first thing I want to say is to express our thanks to God for the last 12 months, which has been a really interesting 12 months financially for reasons we all know personally as well as corporately as a church. So I'll start with our income, and I apologise that some of that lettering is very small and has also changed colour, it seems, since I submitted it. So I'll talk you through this briefly, if I may. The big number to the right-hand side there, £237,323, is the amount of money that we have received as income from our various sources, much of which has come from you as a congregation. And thank you for your generosity. The way God has blessed us financially so that we can go out and be a blessing is humbling on a week-by-week basis. Those of us in the finance team are hugely humbled. That's slightly down on last year, just 1%, but given everything that's going on, thank you for your faithful support. As we'll return to later, there are so many financial pressures on everybody. We hugely appreciate that. That money is predominantly made up, as you'll see, around 40% of that, or you won't see because you can't make out the wording, but you should be able to see it's made up of about 40% of that comes via bank transfers. That's people giving money directly to the church, not through the plate at the back, but directly through their bank. Around £92,000 came that way. The plate at the back of church is still there. It is possible to give money, cash or cheque, to the church that way. It's not very widely used these days. People seem to be making much less use of cash. But do please feel free to do so if that suits you as a way of giving. Last year, we received less than 1% of our money that way. But we have started to receive income through the church via online giving. So those of you who feel comfortable with so doing, you'll notice, for example, at the end of the newsletter that comes out each week, there's a clever thing called a QR code that will enable you to log into a website and give us money. If you've no idea what a QR code is, that probably isn't going to be your favourite way of giving money to the church. That would be just fine. But if that's a way that you are comfortable with, please make use of that. We receive about 13% of our income this year, over £30,000, from tax refunds. That's tax that you have paid to the government in good faith on your income or in other mechanisms. That, because of the way a system called gift aid works in the UK, we can actually reclaim and put to the use of the church. If you are giving to the church and you are receiving an income that's more money than you give to us, then you are actually able to gift aid money to us, and we can reclaim at no cost to you, just at cost to the exchequer, to the government. They want to give us the money back. You're in a position to be able to do so. And for every £1 you give us, we can reclaim 25 pence of that to contribute to the work of the church here. In taxes that you have already paid. They give us those taxes back to support this work. So if that may be something that some of you can do and you're not doing so already, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. Just wanted the number to highlight there, something that I hesitate to mention, but it's my job. We received a legacy last year. We don't receive very many legacies as a church for reasons that in many ways I'm grateful for, because it means Nick is still able to report that you're attending the church. However, if that is something that you would like to have a conversation with me about, I'd be happy to have that conversation for all the obvious reasons. I'll pass on from that one quickly. This might show some numbers about how we're performing over the last few years. You'll see there, hopefully in big enough letters you can now read it, our income has risen over 2.1 times, more than doubled in the last 5 years. That's been partly influenced by some new things that we have started to do, like running CAP Malvern, the Christians Against Poverty program, the debt centre that we run here. But we've more than doubled the income. And as I say, we've slightly dropped off over the last year. So that gives you some idea of some trend in where we're at as a church. And as I said a few moments ago, we've now received almost £240,000 in the 12 months to December last year. I should have led with that. We're talking about the finances up until the end of December. Since that time, we have continued to receive income at about the same rate as we currently as we have, just to bring you right up to date. So that's details of the income. What about how we are spending money? Top right-hand corner there gives some details of how the money is being spent. For For those of you who are still awake at this stage of my presentation, you'll notice that that says 229,235. And I'm not going to try and get you to do clever maths like Nick did. That is nice and straightforward. You'll notice that number is, thank God, slightly less than the income figure. That's a position that makes a treasurer's life somewhat easier to do, of course. That is part of our job, is to ensure that we are spending the money that we receive. Those who sit on the PCC will say that I regularly say that I'm bothered by the fact that we are not spending the income that we receive. That's what we're being given it for. We should be spending it. So I'm very pleased when we get to the end of the year, we do a calculation and work out that we have spent almost all that we receive, because that's what we're receiving it for. Our spending's gone up about 5% compared to 2020. 2020 was an unusual year, of course, because for much of it, this building was closed and not accessible. We've opened up again during 2021, at least in part, and therefore that's led to an element of our expenditure rising. Our largest source of revenue, the big blue section of the pie there, is money which is given to what we used to call the parish share. You'll now hear me start from now on talking about that called the ministry share. It's in effect the same thing, but the way in which we pay money towards the diocese to contribute towards the salary and costs of Dave and the clergy, and other ways in which the diocese supports this church and the wider community across the diocese and wider, we pay a sum towards that we in future you'll hear me referring to as the ministry share rather than the parish share. They're changing the way in which it's being operated and therefore changing the name to emphasise that. And last year we were able, again, thank you to your generosity, to give the full ask that the diocese made of us, which was £81,600 of the £229,000 that we received. We handed over to the diocese and were able to bless them in so doing. A couple of other things to highlight there. The orange section, I think it is, on how it appears. Oh, it appears yellow on that screen, orange on that one, is the amount of money that we're spending on children and young people, including the salaries of the staff that work, particularly in that area. We spend about 15% of all of our income on our young people. For those of you who heard me do these presentations over the last 5 or 6 years, when I started doing this, I was upset that we spent so little on the work of children, and now you'll see that we're spending 4 or 5 times on our children what we were spending.
It was 1%.
It was 1%, yeah. What we were spending 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And we were able to bless our children with that spend, and hopefully you're seeing the effects of that in part with the young people that come back week after week and benefit from being part of our community. The two sections that are the purple and light green, lime green section down there at the bottom, mission outreach and away giving, those represent the money that we are giving away from the church, both to spend in mission in our community and what we now call away giving, which is spending outside of our immediate community. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And we gave away outside of our community over £15,000 and spent in mission and outreach within our community about £34,000. How does that translate into year-on-year change? Well, again, you'll see our spend has followed our pattern of our income, for the reasons I explained earlier, and we've spent almost twice over the last 4 or 5 years what it is we were spending back in 2017, and that's just gone up just a little, as I said a few moments ago, at about 5%. So what do we give our money away to? We give away more than 10% of our voluntary income on an annual basis, and I've listed there the particular groups that we supported in 2021. I won't read them out there, but hopefully you can read the words. Hopefully they're big enough on the slide now to be able to look at who we've given money to. And we gave between £1,450 and £2,000 to each of those groups over the last 12 months. In addition, we gave over £600 to Compassion and Siloam in children's sponsorship for the sponsorships that Pathfinders and Chaos support. Gave away another £3,000 in various other smaller gifts to various things, particularly supporting church members who are engaging in mission or in supporting our young people in developing as future leaders for the church. And then finally there you'll see we gave in cash terms £15,000 towards St Mary's building project, which is a project they've been ongoing for a number of years, and we've contributed a sum. That 15,000 in part comes from surpluses that we've generated in previous years. The difference between our income and expend in previous years, we have held over, and now it was the right time to hand that over to St Mary's because they're progressing with their work there. So £15,000 we've been able to contribute to them. You know, we created a blessing fund a couple of years ago, just to summarise how the blessing fund is operated. This is a designated separate set of money that we set aside to give away or to spend on those who have need within our community or those that we have connection with. This was a fund we set up, should we say miraculously, just before COVID was formed, almost as if God knew what was coming. And we've been able to give away a very significant amount of money, approaching £20,000 now, to people who have been in desperate need of various things, practically and financially, through that period. In 2021, we received about £4,500 directly into that fund, and we were able to spend £3,347, which means we've got a balance of almost £8,000 of money which has been given to that purpose and has not been spent. And I share that balance with you for all the obvious reasons. If you know people who could be blessed, financially or practically, by this church, please let us know, because we've got sums of money that mean to say we could give that away to bless them in various ways. So please do let us know if you think there is somebody who could benefit from that. One final thing I want to say is to look forward. It was an interesting exercise this year in thinking about how I set a budget, how we agreed a budget as a PCC for next year. You won't be surprised to hear me say that there's all kinds of uncertainty that we're facing in our own lives financially, and of course the church here faces exactly the same problem. What's going to happen to our energy prices? We were all worried this week, weren't we, when our energy prices went up 54% if you were on a price cap individually. We are treated as a commercial organisation, as a church. There is no price cap for us. So we are bearing the full brunt of how prices are changing in the wholesale market. I'm not going to tell you how much our gas bill went up this year. It was a frightening amount. So we're facing all the same problems that you're facing personally. What is going to happen with staff changes? Dave will talk about some plans we have in that space more in a few moments. We all know we're facing inflation that is the highest we've seen for many years. That affects all the costs that we are bearing. We have a continued effect of COVID that has limitations on some of our income. We understand all of that, as well as on what we can spend our money on. We want to be able to continue to give to the right places where there is the greatest need. So you've seen us regularly updating where we give our resources, or we recommend that others give. The latest, of course, being to what's going on in the Ukraine and the impact of that on the countries which are taking refugees directly. So the work that's being done by Terry English and the family Hanukkah and so on. So we have some real particular challenges in how we fund our finances over the next 12 months. But we know, we trust and believe in a God who understands all of this and sees the future. I'm not losing any sleep over any of this, so I don't express it to you out of concern, but just so that you're aware as you think about how you give to the church, because we have a great God who we know will support the things that we do, provided we're doing things in keeping with his will. So I'm not losing any sleep over that, but I share it with you anyway. Finally, I'd like to thank the finance team. I'm only one person within the team, and I do by far the least, if I'm honest. As the treasurer, I get to stand up here once a year and share the information, but actually all the hard work is done by people like Marion, who is our bookkeeper and looks after making sure all of our bills are paid on time. People like Valerie, who deals with all of our gift aid claims and sorts out the weekend. Can these people wave? I'm just conscious there's a few new people. So Valerie, can you wave? There's Valerie there. Marion, where are you? Okay, she's out serving. Typical Marion. But Marion's the one that's part of the ones that's organising here. Thank you. And Chris will wave now. Chris deals with all our cash management and making sure it gets safely to the bank. My name is Andy Lymer, and I'm very happy to talk to any of you about the finances of the church. If you wish to know anything in more detail, please do feel free to ask. We're a charity. You can get access to the full accounts online and through, and eventually, once we post them there, through the Charities Commission website. Please ask any questions that you feel is appropriate. I've put my email address there, but you'll find our details on the website. You can access us at any particular point. And finally, somebody's changed my slide. Independent reviewers and examiners. Oh no, it just appears. Yeah. We use external accountants to make sure our accounts are in compliance with the rules. So at some point when I stop talking, Dave will ask us to reappoint them legally to be able to continue to do that process. And finally, I want to say thank you to all of them as team members, because they're the people who actually make the system work. Last slide for me. How do I give? I know some of you are new within the church. You may not be aware of the ways to give to us. I've put the bank details there, the bank sort code and account information. Those are available on our website, so you can look those up. You can give to us via CAF and stewardship or payroll giving if you're in work. Those we receive money from, and there are systems to do that. As I said earlier, cash is welcome. We do still receive cash. That's just fine. Leave it on the plate at the back of church on a Sunday. That would be great. Or at any of the other services, the plate is always there. If you give by cheque, we do still receive occasional cheques. Please can you note, this is probably the biggest bane of my life at the moment, is the banks have changed the way in which they're willing to accept cheques. If you don't make it out to PCC St Andrews, I will have to give you the cheque back and ask you to give me another one, because the bank no longer will receive it. If you put St Andrews PCC, we all know that says the same thing. Apparently the bank doesn't. It has to be that order, otherwise I've got to give you your cheque back. I do apologise, so I just emphasise that. And I've mentioned online giving already, if you feel comfortable with so doing. We're very happy to receive money through that mechanism as well. I've already mentioned gift aid, so I won't mention that again. But if you don't understand gift aid or would wish to ask anything about that, please do ask me, and I'll happily do my best to try and explain it to you. The full accounts for last year are available online, so please do look them up. If you've got any particular questions about the detail there, I've given you a reasonably high-level overview, but if you wish to dig into any of the detail, these are your accounts, not mine. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them and let you know what's going on with the finances of the church. And there again is my email address if you wish to contact me. So, thank you very much.